Thomas, you're dragged into the dining room, and in the room you can see that the Reverend is in there. Anastasia is sitting opposite Burrows. They seem rather close. Charlotte is across the other side of the table, head in hands, looking around. But they are all terrified to see you in the arms of Stephen Jenkins. You look around the room. You hear language being thrown around, Jenkins barking things specifically to Anastasia. You hear Anastasia say something in a cowering voice in return and trying to get as far away as possible. What do you do, Thomas? You can't quite hear what people are saying. You can't quite divine the nature of the conversation that's going on here, but you can see that this isn't right. This isn't right. Jenkins has you and you're in the room with your family.
I think Thomas's first concern is for the family. His own safety is obviously important, but the family reputation is paramount. There's absolutely no way that Anastasia could be allowed to marry this thing. And Thomas is going to try and warn Anastasia to get away, to flee. But I feel that the words probably won't come to his mouth as he's being choked by this creature. There'll be a bit of a wriggle to try and loosen, but with Thomas's weakened state, even that's not coming easily.
Okay, give me a strength roll at disadvantage, please. And it probably need a hard success. Or penalty, I should say.
That is a 60 over 50 on strength.
So with that, you've got one arm wrapped around your chest and your neck that's kind of pinning you to Jenkins, and then his other arm is wrapped around your torso and pinning your arms flat to your sides. Anything to try and lift your arms, to find some wiggle room, to give some sense of space, leverage where you could get a hand out and maybe grab something, maybe act. But in this weakened, disorientated state, you can't do anything. You can only try to communicate. And even at best, that's try. You can't really hear what other people are saying. You see Jenkins, his head above yours, bobbing as he's saying words, barking, but it's just coming out as noise. It's just coming out as this noise that you can't comprehend. Your mind is swirling. You everything seems to have this slight tint to it. Everything seems to have this slight glaze across it, a red glaze across it, as you're looking across the room at your loved ones, at your family, friends. And that's when Jenkins begins dragging you across the room to the far end of the room, to the windows at the far end of the room. You have an opportunity to look back at your loved ones. You have an opportunity to look back at your immediate family members. Is there anything you try and say or do in these possible final moments?
Looking pleadingly at the family, Thomas mouths the words, "Flee, go home, leave this place."
Okay, I'm going to say let's go with intelligence, because I think this is about, rather than the actual act of persuading or charming or fast talking or anything like that, I think whether those words land or not and what's done with them is something different. For you, it's about getting those words to your family. And I think with your current state, if you recognize you are in this current state, it's you using your intellect to communicate those in a way that hopefully people will be able to respond to. So let's have that intelligence roll, please.
And that is a 91 over 65. That's a failure.
You mouth words, some sounds come out. Unfortunately, it's unintelligible. And as you're realizing the words that you're saying just aren't forming, they're not creating meaning, it's when you feel a tug and you swiftly are whipped backwards and you hear a smash. Your eyes go dark. You're still being carried, dragged. There's a thump that lands to the ground. Can you give me a 1d4, please?
That is a 4.
Oh, Jenkins does not like you, Mr. Thomas Prideaux. As he jumps from the window, he jumps in no way, shape or form to try and protect you. And even though you're on the ground floor, you're jumping through a window out onto the lawn and then the gravel path, and you're just landing and slamming into the ground and skidding across the ground. And then he just picks you up and throws you over his shoulder. You've taken 4 points of damage. He's essentially just grabbing you by your arm, wrenching you up by the socket. He's just thrown you out of the window with him. That is a significant beating, essentially, you've just taken in a very short space of time. And he throws you, coughing, bleeding, still in this dazed state, over his shoulder. And some words that you hear, these last words that you hear in this moment, is you hear the cacophony of your sister, your uncle, their protestations, Charlotte, all kind of crying, screaming, and you hear Jenkins as he takes a few steps back towards the window and really looks at them and says, "If you'll excuse me, it's about time. The best man and I had a few words about our expectation of my married life." And then you don't hear this, Thomas, but could you give me a spot hidden?
That's a failure. 57 over 50, but I've only got 39 luck. Can I try pushing this? I don't know what. I don't know whether I can.
You
I'll push
absolutely
that roll.
can.
Although the vision's gone blank, I think Thomas is going to try and rally the last bit of strength. The shoulder's possibly now dislocated. He's bruised all over. His vision's gone, but he's just going to muster that last little bit of strength and see what we can do. And that is a 31 versus 50. That's a success, regular success.
Okay. You can feel blood is trickling from somewhere. You feel the pain all down your back and one of your legs. You've landed really awkwardly and you're thrown over the shoulder. And you're thrown in such a way over the shoulder that you are looking back. So the sheer ability to open your eyes and turn your head in this traumatized state, you see Jenkins, as he says about spending time with his best man, he leans against the broken frame that he's just been in, and he opens his mouth, and in this horrific breath, this breath that he breathes into this room, it fills the room with this almost reaching red mist, which seeps out into the room. Thomas, with your success, it's not just a mist that rolls into the room. There are tendrils within this mist, and they are reaching for your loved ones. They are reaching for Anastasia. They're reaching for the Reverend, for Charlotte, for Burrows. You see them reaching into a space where no one appears to be, but as if they were reaching for someone, for something. And these tendrils, they all reach, and you can see in your last moments with that success, your eyes twitch over to your uncle, and you see one of these tendrils climb up the side of his mouth and start to creep in his mouth, and you see that his eyes begin to roll in his head as he falls back into a chair, dazed, confused. Your eyes flick to Anastasia, your little sister, and the last thing you see before you descend into the darkness of your own unconsciousness are tendrils seeping down Anastasia's throat and up through her nose as her eyes widen. And then you see nothing else. Anastasia splashes water on her face from the water bowl, and the visage, the image, the memory of Stephen Jenkins speaking to her, holding her brother, saying it's time to go down on one knee, rattles around her mind, sending this shiver down her spine. Could you give me a sanity roll, please, Anastasia?
Let's do it. I rolled a 99 over 64. That is not a fumble.
Is not a fumble, but is going to be a 1d8.
Oh. Okay, it's a good times.
Oh no.
It's about time we had some manias and phobias going. Oh, yeah.
I rolled a 2.
Oh, so close.
Lucky.
Okay, so 2 points of sanity lost there, please. But Even though you don't gain a phobia or a mania, you do, as the water splashes on your face. That image, the fear in your brother's eyes, Lord Thomas, there held in some kind of horrific, vice-like headlock. Stephen Jenkins, Mr. Stephen Jenkins, standing there before you, this flaming red burning in his eyes, these veins creeping up his face, down his neck. The look he gives you. Hey, do you know what? Give me a psychology roll in the look that he gives you from your memory.
I'm glad I only have a base 10. That's a 50 over 10. She doesn't want to know.
That's okay. I think that fits this brilliant narrative where she splashes the water on her face. She has this momentary loss of mental control. This has affected Anastasia. This has affected Miss Anastasia significantly, seeing the fear in her brother's eyes. And as her eyes track up to Mr. Stephen Jenkins, seeing his purpose, seeing his motivation escapes her. But he is a terrifying force to behold, nonetheless. But you are in the powder room of Hawthorne Manor, and you do hear this muffled voice of Lord Hawthorne saying, "Oh, great entertainment." What do you do, Anastasia?
Well, let me know if it's a bit of a push, but Anastasia has been feeling ill. She's been kind of getting back those feelings from last night. She's splashing water on her face. She's getting all those mental images, and she's feeling woozy. And she throws up?
Absolutely. She can throw up. Give me a Constitution roll, because I think I know what you're trying to do here, and I want to see if you're successful in doing so.
That's a 73 over 45.
You very much try to throw up, but unfortunately it's a physical reaction to the memory, to the experience, and it's a dry retch. Whatever you have ingested stays ingested.
There is a jug of water, of course, and what I used to do back in my uni days when I really needed to throw up was just down an entire bottle of water until it came back up, and I don't know if she has been at Fresh's week to be able to, to reach back for those memories.
Not convinced she has been at Fresh's week, but I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't suggest that Lady Anastasia, Miss Anastasia rather, has a few secrets of the ladies of society. There are secrets about how to maintain yourself, how to beholden yourself, how to present yourself. And if you are at such a function and you have drunk too much and you are reprimanded by such a maternal or paternal figure, there might be these, let's say, less than public methods to reacquaint yourself with the situation at hand. If Miss Anastasia was to down this jug of water, I would say it is a Constitution roll, but it is with a penalty die.
I'm trying so hard to fail. to fail. Wait, am I trying to succeed in the Constitution roll to not to throw up? Or am I trying to fail the Constitution roll to throw up?
That's a good point. We were trying to succeed before. So I think what we'll do is you are still trying to succeed, but you have a penalty die because you've already tried once. So if you down this jug of water and you succeed with a penalty die, you might be able to remove anything that you have ingested that you didn't want to.
Okay. So I fumbled.
Fumbled.
Yes, indeed.
I'm going to give our listeners a wonderful opportunity.
Has everyone fumbled in the last couple of episodes at this point?
It's
That's
continuous.
quite a track record.
Don't we?
I think it's
And
Lynne's turn.
I cannot thank you enough. Oh, Lady Hawthorne doesn't fumble. How dare you? How dare you, Mr. Burrows?
I'm so sorry.
What happens is, Anastasia, and I hate to say, especially after our previous conversation off air, but you tip this jug of water all over yourself.
Oh, no,
You
that's
think
fair.
that you're about to drown yourself in this so that you can possibly, I think the plan is to regurgitate anything that you may have ingested. But in doing so, you almost kind of, it's too much, too quickly, and you end up spluttering. The water goes all over yourself. You are soaked through. I can
I have
only
done this in
hope,
real life also.
and I can
so-
only imagine that at any given moment, Mr. Burrows is going to see you in another soaked-through dress. It seems like third time is a charm, but I'll leave that to you and Mr. Burrows.
Lucky Mr. Burrows.
You're soaked through, Anastasia. What do you do? In fact, Miss Anastasia, you hear Anders outside. Is everything okay, madam?
Could you please get Lady Hawthorne for me, or perhaps Charlotte, or both?
Of course. One moment, please. And you hear Anders scuffle away. Is there anything you do whilst he's scuffled away? Or do you wait for the appropriate person to arrive?
I think I might be like patting myself dry. It's
Yeah, there's a towel in there.
generically. There's no towels, I'm assuming. I don't know.
Can you
There
give me
might
a
be.
pat myself dry roll, please?
Yes.
Another addition to the Cthulhu.
Is that, can I roll
skill sheet.
dancing
No,
to dance my way dry?
You
Okay.
begin patting yourself dry. I think the reality is with the fumble, doesn't do much. You are absolutely soaked through. Once again, you have, by your own methods, once again, you have found yourself in a dress that is completely drenched.
Last time was not my fault.
No, we'll blame Charlotte / Philippe for that. But we find ourselves back in the drawing room where Lady Hawthorne is holding court with the Reverend, with Charlotte, with Mr. Burrows now, and Lord Hawthorne, who have entered the room. Anders appears and whispers in Lord Hawthorne's ear. He doesn't do anything. Lady Hawthorne,
Yes, my dear.
let us see your entertainment. The Reverend is sitting here wondering what miracles can happen here in Kingscombe. Why not start at home?
Indeed. I am at your disposal, Lady Hawthorne.
Well, I'm sure dear Miss Anastasia will be able to catch up with us. I do hope she's all right. But yes, Reverend, could you drain your tea, please? Leaving just a little fluid in the bottom of your cup.
Reverend obliges the lady.
Could you now swirl it, please? 3 times anti-clockwise.
Okay, he does that.
And now, very carefully, we don't want any spillages. Oh, yes, excellent. Yes, you've not left too much liquid in there. That's fabulous. Now, holding your saucer firmly, I want you to turn your teacup upside down. Onto the cup,
Like that,
and
right?
then,
Yes.
Yes. And then twist it 3 times anti-clockwise.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. How was that?
Oh, that was excellent. You're obviously a natural at this.
Oh,
Now, out of character, I would like you to roll 1d20 for me.
oh boy. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna roll a 1d20. That is an 8.
Ah. Oh, now let me see. Let me see what we have here. And she studies the contents of the cup very, very carefully. She turns it in her hand, sort of shifts it backwards and forwards to get a better angle. Oh, fascinating. Yes, absolutely fascinating. There's an arrow. Can you see? You see this arrow shape here? It's slightly cloudy, but don't worry too much about that. This indicates a letter. Does this mean anything to you, Reverend?
Letters after one's name?
More of a missive, I feel.
Right. Letters. Must be the heat. I'm not recalling anything. And Reverend looks at the teacup and looks at the random collection of tea leaves and is desperately trying to see the arrow.
Reverend, give us a history roll.
History of 87 versus 30. So that's no, he's not very good at this, I'm afraid.
The only letters you can remember then in the very recent history with a failed roll, because there's no beyond the normal expectation of remembrance here, is firstly the letter/note that you passed to Charlotte, who is in the very near proximity to you, saying you are done. The other letter that you can remember is a letter that you collectively received as a family. And it's a painful memory, but it will be burned into your memory forevermore. 13 Luscombe Street. The book is here. Chambers. Now that didn't end too well for Chambers, did it? Now you also remember, and this is the last thing, especially with a fail, because you know there are other secrets here, but unfortunately with a fail you don't get those secrets. But the last thing you know, just because you know these things rather than you're striving deep within your history to recall them into your, should we say, childhood, Reverend, and you think for a moment about your childhood, trying to recall, you can't remember. You can't remember. You remember the bridge. You remember being there with Adam. You remember being there with Philip. You can't remember your childhood here, because it was here. You can't remember. Your brother, Adam, on New Year's Eve, a few years ago, didn't he receive a letter? Didn't he come to see you when you were with your wife and you were with Edward on New Year's Eve, and you were in his house on New Year's Eve with his family on New Year's Eve? And didn't he get a letter which meant that he had to leave on New Year's Eve? And since that day, since that letter, you have felt a responsibility, Reverend. You have felt a weight on your shoulders. The weight of Anastasia and the weight of Thomas and the name of this family. I'll leave you with that.
Okay, he looks and says, well, it has been a busy time. Is there any more to your reading to reveal anything extra?
Let's refresh your cup.
Okay.
Not too much, but again, drink it down to about the same level that you had it before, and repeat the procedure for me, please. We'll see if we can get something a little clearer this time.
The Reverend does the same again, turns it around 3 times, and presents it with as much elegance and etiquette as he can to Lady Hawthorne.
And give me another D20 roll, please.
Is, after all, a dirty teacup. That's a 19.
Oh my.
Oh,
that is most interesting and quite alarming.
Goodness, really?
Yes. I mean, obviously, I find it very hard to believe that such a gentleman as yourself would have enemies. But see here, this shape here, it rather resembles a bull, doesn't it? I think you'll agree. Yes. Oh, dearie me. Yes. I fear that your good name may be slandered in the near future by enemies. Although, as I said, I'm at a complete loss to even imagine that someone as respectable as yourself could possibly even have enemies, Reverend.
Indeed. Well, if you'd have joined us on the journey down here, you'd have discovered quite the many things that even I had no idea about when we started coming down to Kingscote. But, right, well, I shall have to... would you recommend taking precautions, or is this only things that you can read and pass on?
Well, let's just say I should be on my best behavior in public if I were you, and give no one any grounds for such awful slander.
My darling, don't be so delicate with the Reverend. He understands what's going on here. He can see that you have a talent, a skill. Reverend, be assured, we will look after you. Now, you speak of your reputation. My darling wife here has highlighted that there could be those that oppose you.
Opposition, you say, related to the death of Lord Matthew Prideaux, perhaps?
It would be wrong of me to presume. This is not my field of expertise, but I can tell you, our church, the Heart of the Sea Chapel, and our wonderful Reverend Marsh is a friend indeed. If you seek solace, I would like you to know that in our community, you don't have to be a reverend of your own private chapel in Prideaux Manor. You are welcome to, and you are welcome here at the chapel here in Hawthorne Manor, and I know Dunn would also very much welcome any prayers you have to offer in the chapel in his manor. But the Hearts of the Sea Chapel is an open-armed community, and if you were to seek out the Reverend Marsh, I know he would accept you with open arms. It's very much something that he has dreamed about.
Ah, yes. Dreams. You mentioned dreams before. Miss Lambert, you've experienced some dreams, haven't you? And he is kind of like...
Yes.
Realizing that his change of the subject might not have been the best choice of changing the subject, and he looks into his teacup again.
I'm going to give you the choice, Reverend. Sorry, Charlotte, just before you begin. Reverend, you mentioned changing the subject, not the best choice of words, but looking into your teacup. I'll give you the choice here. Is there a spot hidden here? Is there a psychology roll? You're very welcome to make that choice, or you're also very welcome to not make that choice. It's very much up to you.
The Reverend will actually suggest an alternative roll, as he is from the central Ton, up country. The city, Ton. Yeah. And he might be noticing that through the etiquette of these lovely pair, that something might be amiss and that they're trying to steer or play games for which he has experienced many years in the city Ton and coming into the rural Ton. Okay. Might they be pulling the wool over his eyes?
So you're challenging the city Ton versus the rural Ton here.
Let us see how we do things in the big city. May I roll etiquette to see the lay of the land here?
I think that's more than appropriate.
Watch me fumble. Oh,
Hey.
Fortunately, that's a success. 37 versus 70.
Oh, very good.
I think that you recognize in this moment, Reverend, that Lords and Lady Hawthorne, specifically Lady Hawthorne in this moment, has been a lot more personable than you would expect. There's been a lot more personal reeling, interaction, engagement, depth that would normally be expected than a societal tea, a societal invitation to come round. The societal expectations of being in one another's company and being in one another's company at such a highly anticipated involvement might not revolve around these very personal questions, these questions about dreams, these questions about future. You find them somewhat very jarring with what your city Ton would talk about. But this is the country.
When in Rome.
When in Rome. When in Kingscombe.
When in Kingscombe.
And you are in Kingscombe. and you are in the house of one of the leading families, one of the ruling families. You are of one of the ruling families, yet your family has only very recently outlined its roots. You've established yourself as the de facto caretaker of the Prideaux family, as Lord Thomas prepares himself as heir apparent to take over the family. But doesn't this put your family in a rather weak position? I don't know. I'm just asking the question. But you do recognize these questions seem a bit more personal than what you would expect with your city folk.
Yes. But he does stare and look almost apologetically at Miss Lambert as he mentions dreams.
You don't say, Miss Lambert. Oh, I mean, dreams aren't my particular speciality, but I'd be fascinated to hear about any dreams that you've been having. My husband here sets great store by dreams.
Charlotte feels like she's backed into a corner at this point. She's starting to get quite nervous that the Reverend wants her out of the way and that she's going to end up locked in a madhouse somewhere. But she's just going to have to brazen it out because now Lady Hawthorne has asked her directly. And she can't say, well, that's very personal. She can't just brush it off or change the subject. She's going to have to answer. So
well, she can, but society would not be very approving of such a reaction.
And Charlotte is already under a penalty with all social roles because she's been so scandalous in her past, eloping with a French poet. And everybody is still gossiping about it, even though he's dead. So, So Charlotte just decides, going to put a brave face on it, and I'm just going to answer. And she'll say, yes, I've been dreaming of a ship. The Devonshire. I mean, we were coming to Kingston, of course. This is, I'm sure I had this in the back of my mind, that a place known for its water, it's probably not unthinkable that I might dream of death by water. And of course, with the war going on and all our brave gentlemen out there on the sea, I'm sure I've just been thinking about all our brave sailors. Nothing more than that. But
Miss Lambert.
Sir? My lord?
You dreamed of a ship named the Devonshire.
I did. I dreamed of a battle, I think it was. I saw a cannon fire, and then I was thrown over the railings. The ship was hit, and I woke up as I was in the water.
Did you, in your dream, venture into the captain's quarters?
There was another dream, I think. I heard somebody. The cabin was open, the door was open, there was somebody in there. I was going to go in, but I think...
Very good, Miss Lambert, very good. I think dreams are a wonderful way of expressing ourselves, indeed. Burrows! Oh,
Yes, my lord.
chap. Do you dream?
Dream, my lord. Burrows had a faraway look while this conversation was going on, but he blinks a few times. Dream, my lord. At night, in my sleep, you mean? Not typically.
No, I didn't think so. Very good. Resume your position. Reverend, are dreams something you invest in at all?
Well, the Bible teaches us that dreams are a very powerful portent. You remember Jesus interpreting the dreams of the people condemned with him. And also, the dreams of Pontius Pilate, who knew of this forecommon doom that was coming towards him. And, well, I'm sure the Reverend Marsh will be able to tell you all about the dreams in the Bible and how they can tell us about ourselves and what they mean to us and how it reflects to our outward world.
I appreciate your outlook, Reverend. Are you suggesting that our dreams is something that not only we reflect upon the souls of ourselves, but we are able to share with one another?
Oh, sharing dreams. I would. I am not one of these people that look into such things, but surely a shared experience like a nice day out at the beach could find two people dreaming about the same thing. I haven't experienced it myself, but like I say, it's...
it would seem like an unusual experience to have the same dream more than once. If I were to turn to my delightful wife, Lady Hawthorne, and say that I had dreamed, I don't know, let's say, of a deep trench filled with water, flooding past me, and yet there were a seat before me, not just a seat, a throne. A throne carved with images, its back standing tall, a circle, an anchor, waves. It's just a dream. It's just something that I personally had. Is that what you're saying, Reverend? Is that what you're telling all of us, that our dreams are self-reflective upon our own souls?
A throne, you say?
Just a dream, Reverend. Just a dream.
Indeed, and a circle, you say? A symbol of sorts.
Well, perhaps. Just a dream.
Indeed. Just a dream.
Oh, Elias, my dear, I do believe we're going to have to cut your cheese rations before bed.
Indeed, you do know I like my cheese. Lady Hawthorne. Miss Lambert seems to revel in these dreams. Miss Lambert, you would not be adverse, would you, to having your tea leaves read? I do find it quite amusing.
Of course. I would be fascinated to
Excellent. Drink that tea.
And again, Charlotte feels very much backed into a corner, so she will drink the tea and leave a little bit in the bottom of the cup and look
three times anti-clockwise, my dear. Yes, that's right. Yes,
and she shall do that.
Careful not to slop it. Here we go. And upside down, please.
And she overturns it.
Twist. Marvellous. Now let me see. And roll that 1d20 for me, please.
Okay. I've rolled a 6.
Oh, there we go. Oh, yes. I do believe I can see an apple in there. Oh, that's marvellous. Now, I'm not into palmistry. It's not where my talents lie. But I would hazard a guess, my dear, that you have a very long lifeline, should anyone care to look. And that's what this apple is telling me, that you will have a long life. I don't suppose you have any particular business interests, do you?
I do try to be a writer.
A writer? That sounds rather interesting. What is it that you write?
Well, my late husband and I, we travelled a lot in France and Germany. I became fascinated by the folk tales of the region and the fairy tales. I've been trying to rewrite them, collect them, maybe put my own little twist on them.
Interesting. because this apple may also foretell a gain in this pursuit of yours. Interesting. Very interesting.
Oh,
I don't
that's good
suppose you'd
news.
care to indulge me a little further, my dear.
Oh, of course. I would be glad to.
Would you care to repeat the procedure as the Reverend did? Let's
Of
see if we can
course.
glean a little more information.
She's quite encouraged now. And I've rolled a 10.
Ah, now. Oh. Well, this is most perplexing. I think your mind might have been wandering slightly, my dear, when you were doing this. It does help to focus. Obviously, your focus was much better before. I think, well, if I'm not mistaken, that does look like a bat, which is most contradictory. Most contradictory. Dearie me, I don't suppose there are any other undertakings that you're taking part in at the moment, or that you're looking into?
Not really.
Miss Lambert, could you drink the tea leaves? Can you make a power roll for me, please, Charlotte?
I can. That was a failure of 99 against 55.
I'm going to say that not only do you drink the tea leaves, but you get the cup. Your fingers are in there, and you are scooping the leaves very much into your mouth, and you're swallowing every last one that there is. And as you're doing that, you hear Lord Hawthorne. You hear Lord Hawthorne in the background. Yes, very good. Take it down. Excellent.
Does the Reverend notice this?
Absolutely, Reverend. You see Miss Lambert in a rather unusual fashion, but let's be honest, for Miss Lambert, is this unusual? She has been acting very unusual for quite a significant amount of time now, that she is scooping the tea leaves into her mouth from the cup with her hand. Mr. Burrows, you noticed this as well. You are not of the ton, but you can see this behavior, and this behavior is not of someone who is either of the ton or, as Miss Lambert is, aspiring to be reacquainted with those of a higher society.
Yes, the brow definitely furrows, and you're doing quite well, Miss Lambert.
It's very nice tea.
Oh, it is a most excellent blend, yes, and most edifying, I find.
Edifying, yes. Not edible, I hadn't quite realised, but perhaps I simply don't know the blend.
But perhaps it's something French tradition, Mr. Burrows.
Ah, yes, I've not travelled widely.
The Reverend kind of tries to catch him a glance of what's going on, but equally sort of doesn't want to offend the hosts or anything. So almost in there's a, all right, don't mention it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In terms of the don't mention it, in terms of the power roll, in terms of what's happening here, we've already had the power roll. We find ourselves on the 8th of the March, 1812. Charlotte, your head is between your knees. You hear these horrific sounds. You hear doors slamming, people falling, windows cracking. You hear a door slamming open. You hear a voice asking someone whether they should get down on their knee, and you hear someone choking, almost screaming for help. You're able to look out at the corner of your eye, and you see Lord Thomas Prideaux in this chokehold. You see Lord Thomas Prideaux in the chokehold of someone you have never seen before, yet you recognize. You've seen this silhouette before. By a tree in a house. These red burning eyes, the veins of red rippling up their face. You recognize this, but you are in the middle of a panic attack, anxiety attack, sanity attack. Your head is between your legs and you're looking up. What do you do, Charlotte?
Charlotte tries to get to her feet. She's probably feeling very, very woozy, not able to really stand properly. So she's kind of holding onto the edge of the table at this point, and nothing is making sense. Suddenly, her dead husband was here, was talking to her. What a horrible thought. Maybe everybody's dead. What is this thing, this red-eyed thing? Is it a demon? Are they all dead and in hell? No, that can't be right. That can't be right. This is the intruder from the other night that they found when they were staying on the road. And so she just calls out for guards, for footmen, for whoever can hear, and just help, murder, help.
As you begin screaming, murder, help, the eyes of this red, piercing individual just lock with you, Charlotte. And they burn into you, Charlotte, these red eyes. And it's not the eyes that are red, the pupils are black. It's the outer eye that is red, leading into these veins running down. And then the helpless Lord Thomas Prideaux, your Lord Thomas Prideaux, in his arms. But as this red-eyed individual locks with you, as you're screaming, help, murder, help, these eyes descend, and you just hear a low rumble of the voice saying, you wouldn't remove my bachelor party, would you? And then within a flash, Mr. Stephen Jenkins, with Lord Thomas Prideaux in his arms, smashes through the window that Lady Anastasia was attempting to break and ends up onto the gravel outside of Prideaux Manor. And then within almost another flash, an inhuman move, a preternatural move, is gone. Up the field. Up further into the Prideaux property. You know, Charlotte, more than anybody else, what lies further up that field.
The lake.
But before you can see what happens, Mr. Stephen Jenkins and Lord Thomas Prideaux are gone. But you find yourself back in the room in the 9th of March, 1812, in Hawthorne Manor, with Lady Hawthorne, Lord Hawthorne, the good Reverend Mr. Burrows, Anastasia, and you're sitting there, Charlotte, having this memory, having this moment. You're going to need to make a quick sanity roll for me, please.
Okay. That's another failure. 71 against 48.
Oh, good Lord.
She's not well at all.
Keep on giving. Could you give me a 1d4, please?
I can. I'm dreading it, but I can. That's a 2.
Then you lose 2 points of sanity.
Okay.
And in the short time that's happened over the last day or two, you absolutely recognize that your own personal sanity is degrading, Charlotte. This isn't just a surprise. It's not like, oh, I feel something. This is you feel yourself slipping. You are not the same person you were even before you left Hampshire. You are, having arrived in Kingscombe, you feel like a different person. You are a different person. Philippe told you you were a different person. But Lady Hawthorne is reading your tea leaves. She's talking to you about bats. She's talking to you about this fruitless undertaking you might have. But she mentioned to you about the success of your writing. Your writing. Is that something that, with your love of folk tales, that you've invested in? You've ignored it for so long. But with everything that's happening, maybe this is something. You come back out of that moment and you find Lord and Lady Hawthorne laughing at some joke that you haven't heard. Well, I think it's just an embarrassing moment. But Tobias will play the harpsichord here, and my word, Tobias is exceptional. Tobias, on with you. And he begins playing.
Reverend looks at Tobias. Is he a handsome chap?
He is
Does
a
he
handsome chap.
Does he walk with a limp? Is he overweight? Is he, basically sizing him up? He's noticed the amount of grooms that have walked down the aisle towards him, and he's often, not in any kind of judgmental way, passed an opinion about whether the groom fits the bride. Thinking of Anastasia, is Thomas right height,
Reverend, two things strike you, and you don't need to roll for this because he's there in the room and Anastasia's there in the room. You, Reverend, pick up on the first. The first is that Tobias is very much Anastasia's age. Without, is he too young? Is he too old? He's Anastasia's age. He fits the bill. Secondly, there's a moment, and you don't need to roll for this, Reverend. I just want to give you this. And you remember at Lord Matthew's funeral, not the public affair at the church, the private affair at the Prideaux tomb. Didn't Lord Hawthorne tell you that he remembered you as a child playing with Tobias, playing with his son?
Okay.
Tobias comes down, and he is a young gentleman in his 20s. He is full of life. He looks happy. He comes down and he sits at the harpsichord and he starts playing. Or he kind of looks at the group. He doesn't really engage too much because he's been instructed by his family, and he's showing his musical ability. And he starts playing, and it's lovely. Lord Hawthorne at this point turns to everybody. Well, I'm afraid time and tide waits for no man. I would invite you all back here tomorrow. Lady Hawthorne and I are quite fond of a game of pall. We have a little set out in the back. It'd be quite wonderful if you could all join us. Burrows.
Yes, my lord.
You've picked up a club in your time, haven't you?
Once or twice.
Excellent. You can hold them for Miss Anastasia. The rest of you would be wonderful in having you play with us. Miss Lambert, you included. I think it'd be important that you are part of this new beginning.
I would be very pleased to join you, Lord Hawthorne.
And we extend the invitation to Thomas, obviously when he arrives. So please swing around in the morning. We'll have ourselves a tea. Well, I'll leave Lady Hawthorne to decide which blend. And we will have ourselves a lovely little game before perhaps a promenade.
Oh, yes, definitely a promenade. I do think that some sea air would do everyone the world of good.
Then it is decided, and I won't hear no for a word. Pall Mall in the morning, promenade after tea. Any objections? No? Excellent. We'll see you in the morning. Wonderful to have you here. Anders, see out the Prideaux. Make sure it's quick. Make sure they get back to their manor house relatively sufficiently. And may I thank you for your company. It's been very, well, Lady Hawthorne, shall we say, revealing?
Stimulating.
Stimulating.
The pleasure has been ours entirely. We are indebted, and will. It's been a while since I picked up. You do play Pall Mall with a hammer down here, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Good. Yes, that will be very entertaining. And a promenade, you say. The bridge across the river did catch my eye yesterday.
Well, we can cross the bridge, Reverend, but we'll be promenading along the coast. It's where we promenade here in King's Court.
Marvelous. We shall be at your service and take your lead. And he bids a good day to the Hawthorns in the best, most city-ton way he can.
How long has Anastasia been left in the powder room for?
As long as you
Waiting
like.
for-
She can be re-involved in this moment, or she can be re-entering at this moment, or she can be entering after this moment. You tell me, Anastasia.
Okay, so she's not locked in that room. She can
No.
exit if she wants to.
No, all you know is that your dress is soaked through and that Anders is on the outside waiting for you. You've asked Anders to get some attention for you. Anders came and spoke to, you don't know, Mr. Hawthorne, and Hawthorne didn't respond.
And when Anders came back and I asked, are they coming? What did he say?
I've informed Mr. Hawthorne, Miss Anastasia.
How about Lady Hawthorne?
I'm afraid she's engaged with our guests. It would be improper for me to interrupt.
Okay, in which case you would probably wait for like 5 to 10 minutes tops and then just walk out.
Okay. As you walk out, Anders, you can imagine, probably stumbles after you, seeing the state you're in, and is almost kind of, ma'am, excuse me, Miss Anastasia. But if you're walking off, you are very welcome to walk off beyond Anders's grasp.
If you had done your job, this wouldn't have happened. She says and she walks.
Huge apologies, ma'am. I can't apologize enough. And yeah, he follows you, but he is tailing you and is apologetic. Do you where do you go? Do you re-enter the drawing room?
I might ask if there's anything I could use to cover myself up, like a spare coat or anything that they might have. I might ask Anders if he has something to give me.
Of course, ma'am. Please, if you'll come with me, I'll take you to one of the bedrooms and I'll present to you some clothes that you can change into.
Very well.
He takes you upstairs. Give me a spot hidden, please, Anastasia.
That is an extreme success with a 6 over 45.
Okay, Anastasia.
She is paying attention. She is curious about this place.
Yeah, and you are going to absolutely regret paying attention to this place.
No.
You, Anastasia, are taken up to one of the bedrooms upstairs. You can see it's one of the guest rooms. You can see within, you walk into the room and it's empty. There's no one there. But within a moment, there's a knock on the door, and you can hear the voice of one of the female serving staff. Milady, we have a change of clothes for you.
Do come in. Thank you.
And they come in, and there's 3 of them, and they come in and they put different parts of the dress down on the bed and just different shoes and just things that if you needed them, they are there for you to take. And then they all leave really, really quickly. But with your role, you see that they leave a little bit too quickly. And then you look at the dress, Anastasia. Oh, Anastasia. There's a letter on top of the dress.
No.
Even here,
you see
Jenkins.
a letter on top of the dress.
To my intended Anastasia, I hope the journey to Kingscombe has not been too arduous, especially since you were up late with working class company at the witching hour. I hope you have found some rest, knowing that I am keeping an eye on you. Although I can only imagine what people will say if they heard you were in the habit of entertaining men of industry within your chamber. I wonder what your brother and uncle might say. It was lovely to see you again, and I look forward to a time when we can spend more time together in each other's arms. I digress, my dear intendant. I write with an offer, nay, a clue, in the search for your father. But I would hate to be accused of accomplishing all the work, rendering such a capable young woman useless. I see beyond. I say beyond the expectations of society and the rules that your betters would put upon you, and recognize your talents. Therefore, I offer you this thought to ponder on. You pass me, and I pass you. I have a face, but no eyes. I never stop and never rest. I have hands, but no arms. What am I? Your dutiful and ever-present Mr. Stephen Jenkins. Well, now we're playing games, are we?
Oh, indeed. Absolutely. 100%. Always playing games. Anastasia, you read this. Is there any initial reaction you have to reading this?
She was hoping after he tried to grab her that he would stop with the pleasantries, but she probably gets a terrified shiver. Tries to ignore it, but then is intrigued because even though she has had a terrible time recently, there's still a part of her that is very intrigued about what happened to her father and really, really needs to know. So she ponders the riddle while she puts on the dress and definitely is very hypervigilant about any noises or people walking past and stuff.
Yeah, quite unusually, especially with Anastasia being on such a hyperactive sensitivity after receiving a letter, not just a letter from Stephen Jenkins, but a letter here. Every time you've received a letter so far, it's being somewhere that you have stayed, somewhere you have slept, somewhere you have been, somewhere you've been expected. This moment where you were taken up to a room to get changed because your dress was wet, this is not an expected room for you to be in. This would not be a place where you would expect a letter to be waiting for you. But I'll allow that specific horror to just seep into your pores as we carry on. You, Anastasia, I imagine, and tell me if I'm wrong, once dressed, you bring yourself down to the others.
Yes, unless you will allow me an intelligence roll to see if I would figure out the riddle. Because Phaedra has kind of figured it out, but I don't know about Anastasia.
Oh, okay. No, I'll allow an intelligence roll, but I think if Phaedra's figured it out, we might be onto something anyway. Let's have an intelligence roll anyway, and then I'm all for if the investigator figures it out and the player figures it out, then I kind of think we're on one and the same here. So please tell me what you rolled.
That is a hard success with a 32 over 80.
Okay, hard success. Anastasia / Phaedra, can you tell me what you think you figured out?
Anastasia is smarter than me, so she might have figured out more than I have. But, I mean, line 2, 3, and 4 are about clocks. And the first one's about time. Time doesn't fit all of them, clock doesn't fit all of them, but time fits clock.
Read
so
it
we'll
for
be
me
looking
one more
around.
time. Read it out loud for me one more time.
You pass me and I pass you. I have a face but no eyes. I never stop and never rest. I have hands but no arms. What am I?
And you've rolled a hard success.
Yeah.
Anastasia, you can remember when you first arrived in Prideaux Manor, when you first saw the carriage driver with red eyes duck into the servants' quarters, running around the house, seeing what was happening, seeing the sabers on the wall, which you know where they ended up.
I don't actually.
Oh, not yet. You saw a number of things. You saw pictures, you saw sailors, you saw admiralty, you saw ships, you saw a grandfather clock. in the hallway
That's the one.
of Prideaux Manor. You're in Hawthorne Manor, but you saw a grandfather clock in Prideaux Manor. And having read this, there is a certain click that happens. Anastasia, do you stay in the room? Do you come downstairs? What do you do?
I definitely go downstairs as soon as I can, tucking the letter into some of the layers of the dress, because there are no pockets for women, but at least we have lots of layers. So.
Is it fair to say at this point, since Lord Hawthorne and Lady Hawthorne have talked about Pall Mall tomorrow and a promenade tomorrow, that the collective Prideaux company returns back to Prideaux Manor? Is that something that is on the cards?
Are we taking Burrows, or what's happening to Burrows?
He is a part of the Prideaux party.
Okay.
I'm going to be your caddy tomorrow, apparently.
Indeed, indeed. Charlotte, Reverend George, is there anything you'd like to do or say before you return back to your own manor? Your manor, it's your home, it's your stead.
He will look around for Anastasia.
Anastasia, and please tell us, do you arrive back in the room? Do you go on your own?
I arrive back in the room and I look around, but don't say anything. I'm kind of hyper vigilant about threats, but not ready to engage with anyone.
Charlotte would absolutely notice that she's changed her dress. Charlotte is very fashion forward and would probably also realize that this is not Anastasia's dress. It's probably a lot richer, a lot higher quality and elegant than perhaps Anastasia would normally be wearing. So she's wondering, something's gone wrong here.
You've noticed this. Anastasia, can you give us a fashion roll?
Me?
Yeah, you're changing mid-tea party. Let's see if this fits. Let's see if it suits. Let's see if you wear it right. This is a big Regency expectation.
That is a failure with a 53/13. Anastasia is the kind of girl that gets dressed by other people and not by herself.
Yeah.
I dropped you in it. I'm sorry, Phaedra.
No, absolutely. As a Regency expectation, your ability to wear this dress that isn't yours and wear it properly, I mean, that's an expectation. If you are seen out, you are seen to be proper. And if you're not wearing proper attire, it's noticed. So, Anastasia, can you tell me whether it's too big, too small? What's going on with this dress?
I think Anastasia has, rather than it not necessarily being the right size, because I do trust the sevens to have kind of figured that out, I think Anastasia would have skipped a lot of steps that she finds just annoying or itchy, or just she does not like them. And she doesn't have anyone there to help her. So she would just have put on the bare minimum of the required attire that she can afford to. And she has determined that this will be okay and this is sufficient. But actually, it looks very obvious to the trained eye,
So as you
which is any
return to
eye
the
besides
room,
hers.
Lord Hawthorne is the first to see you enter the room. As you enter among this group, you hear Lady Hawthorne giving this slight unusual reading to Miss Charlotte Lambert. But as you enter the room, it's Lord Hawthorne who turns to you. Ah, Miss Anastasia. Oh, is everything all right? You seem a little unprepared.
Just a minor accident in the washroom.
Minor. Well, we'll see what we can do about that. Anders, make sure everything is sorted, please. And Anders kind of like snaps to and then leaves the room like electric, like sharp, like as if his life depends on it. I would like to offer you our thanks, Miss Anastasia, Miss Lambert, Reverend. It has been an absolute pleasure having you here. Lady Hawthorne.
Yes, my dear.
You have been, as always, an absolute diamond. I believe Miss Anastasia, Miss Lambert, Reverend, you should appreciate this.
Oh, of course we do. Would it be too out of the ordinary in Regency times to applaud the host? If that is the case, then the Reverend will applaud Lord Hawthorne's comment about his wife and nod very much approvingly, and look at Mr. Burrows to clap as well.
I don't think it's out of place. I think it is fully expected.
He will clap and say, yeah, Lord Hawthorne.
Please, thank you so much, but it's not required. Not required.
No, not at all, my lady. Don't you be so... Well, you. Wonderful you. Prideaux, we'll see you on the morrow, yes?
Indeed you will, Lord Hawthorne. Lady Hawthorne. And he nods and looks at Anastasia in the odd dress, thinking, oh gosh, not more seawater.
Well, that's tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, we actually jump here, and as much as you have interactions here about Burrows leaving the situation and how he'll interact, we'll come back to these things. You find yourselves at nighttime, individually, in your rooms. Can I just get you each to just tell me what it is individually in your rooms? You're finally alone. You're finally by yourself after such an intense and observed societal interaction. You are finally by yourself. What is it that you do in these moments? Burrows, we're going to start with you.
Burrows shuts the door behind him very carefully, and then he starts going through his pockets. The first thing he takes out is his pocket notebook, leather covered. He sort of lays that carefully down on whatever sort of small dressing tables in his room. And then he's patting his pockets and rifling through them sort of slightly frantically, looking for a tarot card, a 7 of Swords that he knows he had, unless it was just another strange dream, but it doesn't seem to be here just now. And no, he doesn't want to think about it actually, but his hands do brush against inside a small inner pocket of his overcoat. He draws out a small dagger and he looks at it for a minute, and he remembers Mr. Aldworth giving it to him, explaining that yes, of course he is a legal apprentice, but you never know when a customer might decide to take out their fury on their lawyer. Best to be prepared. Great advice from a great man. And he stares at it for a little while and then puts it back. And then he starts making some notes in his notebook and just trying to get his thoughts in order.
Can you give me a luck roll, Mr. Burrows?
Mm-hmm. Let's see, that's 60 luck. And that's a success, 43 under 60.
Okay. Yeah, you search through the book, and luckily, you can't find the card, the 7 of Swords. It's just not there. You search through, and it just doesn't exist. It's not something that you can see. It's not something you search through, and it was there. It was a bookmark. It was there. Oh, hang on. You turn the page on this you actually recognize the chapter. It's about shared ownership of business, of industry. It's a very specific chapter that now you think, oh yeah, because of what Hawthorne was talking about, this is something I should look at. And there is your card. No. Burrows. That's not your card. That's not the 7 of Swords.
Oh no.
It's a different card.
Oh, he raises it in shaking fingers, and he's looking at a copy of The Fool, standing as he is, poised, gazing out at the horizon, about to step off of a cliff.
On that wonderful sentiment, Anastasia, you're in your room, alone. It's nighttime. You've all said your pleasantries. No one seems to have shared anything this evening. You're not quite sure why. But after this evening, day, should I say, at the Hawthorne estate, you've returned to the Prideaux estate after everything that's happened, after the funeral, after the burial of Lord Matthew Prideaux, after Thomas. You have this memory of Thomas. You have this memory of Mr. Stephen Jenkins, but you've been told quite convincingly Thomas is at the spa. It's jarring. You push it aside. Anastasia, what do you do this evening?
Anastasia has some slightly obsessive tendencies, and now she's been given a puzzle. So I think Anastasia will be sneaking out of her room at night to check out that grandfather clock. So...
Is there a role that you'd like to give me? So I'm going to say that you find the grandfather clock relatively easily. It's nighttime, no one's around. You sneak down. You're in your kind of nightgown. You find the hallway, of which is elongated. It's illuminated at either end, but it's quite a dark hallway. Lots of shadows are being cast, and at the far, far, far end is the grandfather clock.
I guess I want to look at it or in it or whatever. It might get me my clue.
Is there a role?
I guess Spot Hidden is the classic, unless you want me to like try and take it apart or unlock it or something.
No. This is down to you. If you'd like to use the classic, I am more than happy for you to use the classic.
And Anastasia is not good at a lot of things. She's not good at most things.
I would say with the hints that you've had, I'm going to argue there's a bonus die there.
Okay. Looking around with a bonus die.
I mean, you've been told, haven't you? You have solved the riddle, the clue, the enigma. So if you'd like a bonus die, it's yours.
I didn't need it, turns out. We have a 27 over 45.
Then you open the face of this grandfather clock. And as you do, you see tucked in the bottom of the face is a scroll of paper, which... Tell me if I'm wrong, Anastasia, but I imagine you pull out and unravel.
I have no choice.
Then you see...
more reading.
A piece of paper before you. If you wouldn't mind reading it aloud for all of our wonderful listeners.
21st to the 10th, 1707. The Battle of the Lizard in retrospection. We were part of an English convoy protected by a squadron of ships under Commodore Richard Edwards. We sailed a 130-strong fleet when we left Plymouth. 5 warships leading the convoy to Spain were headed by the Devonshire, captained by John Watkins. In an altercation with the French, many ships were lost, and we aboard the Devonshire's tank at the Canyon of the Lys. The Devonshire was broken, with all its crew feared to be drowned and dead, but this was not the case. 3 crewmen survived under the most unusual circumstances. I was one of these 3 survivors, allowing me the presence to recall this unbelievable journey. The other crewmen consisted of the ship's surgeon, Mr. Dunn, and the ship's purser, Mr. Hawthorne. All of us from the same town of Kingscombe. It appears fate had other plans for the 3 of us.
It's a lot of information.
It is a lot of information, and you're standing in the dark of Prideaux Hall, the main hall that leads through the entire building, shadows peering up at the sides. You've escaped your room in the night to find this grandfather clock. Tick, tick, tick. You've opened the face of this clock and you've removed this scroll and you've read this very clearly private diary entry of which someone gave you access to. Not just someone, but a very scary someone, Anastasia. And you are surrounded by darkness, and you are surrounded by shadows. Is there something you'd like to do, Anastasia?
I think Anastasia wants to not be alone right now. And I think she's torn between Charlotte and Mr. Burrows. Because, I mean, her uncle was never in question. She's not talking to him. Mr. Gaslighter over there. But yeah, Mr. Burrows, obviously, again, poor guy causing scandal. And Charlotte, she has been a bit erratic recently, with almost drowning herself. And I'm not sure exactly what place she'll be in.
Where would you like to go?
I think she'll go for Charlotte.
Okay.
She hopes.
Anastasia grabs the scroll. She runs to Charlotte's room. Reverend, just quickly, what is it that you're doing? Are you fast asleep? Is there anything you'd like to do before you do put your head down on your pillow?
The Reverend has no idea what is going on. He is lost. He feels alone. He feels like he's letting everyone down. Everything he says seems to have the opposite effect of pushing people apart. When he expressly said, if we push ourselves apart, it will be ourselves to blame. So he is going to find solace in the one place he knows that he'll be welcome, and he's going to find that observatory in Prideaux Manor. He's going to go up and might not even bother looking through the telescope. He's just going to sit there looking up at his stars, looking up at his God, looking back at him, trying to find some kind of direction, some kind of, maybe not a sign. He's not asking for that. He doesn't feel worthy enough that this is such of a problem that he can't handle it himself. But, he might do a little bit of his astrology as well to see whether or not there is a particular troubled time ahead.
Is this something he does tonight or something he plans to do in the morning?
He's just being at the moment, and as his mind walks through the heavens, if something jumps out to him, then he'll remember it. But as I say, it is just something. He just needs some me time, really.
Well, if it's something that he's planning for the future, then there's the opportunity for him to go and spend some genuine time in the observatory and see if those stars are right. We'll allow him to have that moment and genuinely consider what he sees and, well, let's be honest, what sees him. But I think we've all been waiting for this moment. Charlotte. Finally. Alone. Your room. Everything that's happened. What do you do, Charlotte?
Charlotte can't sleep. Everything which has happened over the past couple of days is just racing through her mind. She saw Philippe again. She heard him, and he told her she was different and she was special and she wasn't doing what she was supposed to be doing. And then she starts thinking about the tea leaf reading and the apple that Lady Hawthorne saw, saying that something would come to fruition. Maybe it's time to start writing again properly.
Hey, Charlotte. Can you give me a 1d4, please?
I can. That's a 1.
Oh. Charlotte. You realize, as you're thinking this, the apple, I should start writing again. You're sitting at your vanity mirror, at your desk, and you look down. The quill is in your hand. There is paper before you. You've written something. Could you read it out loud for us, please?
The Crimson Kiss. The idea that a man can be more than himself is an idea once held by rebels, outcasts, and heretics. The knowledge that if a man wants to be more than himself, then he is no longer a man. He is more than a man, more than a human. He is something else entirely.
Charlotte, this is your handwriting. You wrote this. But when you look at it and you read those words, you have no recollection of writing this. But didn't Lady Hawthorne tell you that you should write something? Can you make a sanity roll for me, please?
A failure of 97 against 46. Another fumble.
Oh, my word.
This is bad.
I hate to say it, but the events of the last day, bearing in mind we are within a day of you seeing Philippe in the lake, the funeral, Lady Hawthorne read your tea leaves. She told you that you should write something. You have blinked, you're at the vanity, and you have written something. You've written the start of a story. I'm going to ask you for 2 rolls, Miss Lambert. One is a 1d8 sanity roll, and the other is another d4, please.
Oh, a D8?
Oh, I'm afraid so.
Okay, a D8. It's a 2.
Oh, 2 points of sanity. Such a shame. I had such a brilliant bout of madness ready for you. But I'd like you to unroll another 1d4 for me, please.
Okay, the D4 is also 2.
Then, Miss Lambert, you have 2 more in such a short space of time. Almost as if you blink, 2 more paragraphs of your story written. Could you read them out loud for us, please?
This is the Crimson Kiss number 2. Jonas Connell was such a man. He woke up one day to his ongoing monotonous existence working at the docks and washed his face with the water from his bowl in the same manner he did every morning. He looked hard into his mirror and even harder at his reflection, wondering what it would say back to him if it could talk. "Hello, me," he said to his reflection, but the reflection stared back without answer. If anything, it looked uninterested with his attempts at pleasantry.
And just before you move on to the next paragraph that you realize, Charlotte, that you have written since you've been sitting at the vanity desk, they weren't there a minute ago. You blinked and there are more. There is more writing. There is more ink on the paper before you. You think about your own existence, about your own importance, Charlotte. Could you read the next part of your story that you are writing, please, Charlotte?
The Crimson Kiss number 3. The next morning, Jonas woke and once again pondered the repetition of his mundane routine. He washed his face in the wash bowl and spoke to his reflection. Perhaps he was tired of being on his own. Perhaps he was ashamed of how his betters at the docks treated him. Either way, he was lonely and looking for something more. It seemed easier to speak his thoughts. He felt that if he could say them out loud, he would share their burden, but there was no one to share them with. No one he knew he could rely on. He looked up from his wash bowl and saw his reflection in the mirror. The reflection spoke. "Looking glum, old chum. Been a while since I've seen you smile."
This is in your hand, Charlotte. This is in your handwriting. Charlotte, are you looking glum? Has it been a while since we've seen you smile? Thank you for joining us for Cult and Culpability. Remember, you can find us at www.miskatonicplayhouse.com, and you can also visit the main stage for other scenarios from the Miskatonic Playhouse with links in the show notes below. Please like and subscribe, and if you can spare a minute to leave a review, it makes a huge difference to other like-minded listeners who will be able to find and enjoy our work. Until next time, when the curtain rises again.